Have you ever wondered why the harder you grind, the farther freedom feels? What if you don't lack sweat but direction? Stop lying to yourself that if I just give more, I'll get rewarded. Here's the truth. Hard work is the skill of people who don't have options. In a ruthless economy, you don't get paid for effort. You get paid for how hard you are to replace. The moment you work 12 hours a day to finish every task, you stamp yourself as a high-output part. And parts get used. Parts don't get respected. Wealthy people rarely get paid by the hour. They get paid for the leverage they control. If diligence created prosperity, your parents, the farmers, and the sanitation workers would be billionaires by now. You get poorer because you trade your labor for wages that inflation eats alive, while someone else uses your effort to build leverage for themselves. You feel proud because you're the strongest pack mule, but the cart doesn't belong to you, the owner does. But if all you do is feel bitter and scream, "I quit," you fall into another trap, the fake freedom of being unemployed. You drift around searching for a new passion, but you carry the same employee mindset everywhere you go. The real issue isn't how many hours you work. It's a mechanism the elite keep hidden, so the working class stays so busy they never have time to think. There's a secret about capital and silence. If you don't understand it, you'll stay the person watching others get rich from your effort. Put your bruised ego aside. Don't justify yourself. Reality doesn't care about your feelings. But there is another path. Not the path of escape. Not the path of quitting in panic. A state where you stop selling all your energy just to survive. A sovereign state where you take back control of your time, your attention, and your reactions. Before you build anything outside, you rebuild your inner structure. In this video, I'm going to expose the real machinery behind nice guy syndrome. The people who stay available, stay pleasant, do more than necessary, and get used instead of respected. You'll see why busyness often isn't work ethic. It's a survival reflex from someone terrified of being cast out. We're not going to learn how to do more. We're going to learn when not to move. You'll see why the person who reacts slower often holds power longer. Why the right silence can shake an entire system without you ever raising your voice, and why the market never pays top dollar for your sweat. It pays for what's so hard to replace, it can't be ignored. But there's a price. You'll have to give up something familiar, something that once made you feel safe, the feeling of looking busy. People will misunderstand you as slow. They'll see you as not hungry. They might even call you lazy, because they've never stopped long enough to realize where they're being dragged. And here's the non-negotiable line. If you still need society to clap so you can believe you matter, if you still live off nods and praise for being hardworking, turn this video off right now. What comes next is only for people willing to trade cheap approval for silent power. And if you're sick of being fuel for someone else's machine, if you're ready to take your power back in silence, welcome to the sovereign mind. There's a type of person you see in every office. They arrive first, they leave last. They're always moving, always saying, "I'll handle it." They look like a machine. No rest, no complaints, no pause. Society calls them hardworking. Power calls them replaceable. And here's the most painful part. The more you prove you can carry the load, the more the system adds weight. The busier you get, the less time you have to notice where you're being taken. The problem is, most of these people aren't lazy thinkers. They just never get space to think. Their day gets engineered shut. Email after email, task after task, pressure after pressure, before they can ask, is this worth it? They're forced to ask, how do I finish in time? So they confuse motion with progress. And that's when an uncomfortable truth surfaces. Busyness doesn't always come from responsibility. A lot of the time, it comes from fear. Fear of being judged, fear of being replaced, fear of becoming useless in someone else's eyes. When that fear gets strong enough, you stop working with strategy. You work with survival instinct. You don't ask, does this move me toward freedom? You ask, how do I avoid getting cut? That's why so many people can't tolerate emptiness. No tasks, and they get restless. No emails, and they feel hollow. No one needs them, and they feel like they don't exist. So they create work. They stretch the hours. They turn themselves into someone who can't stop. Not because they love the job, because they fear stillness. You need to understand this. The system doesn't need you creative. It needs you stable and predictable. A tired person can't ask big questions. An exhausted body can't build a plan. A drained human can only react. And that's why busyness gets worshipped like a virtue. But look straight at the power mechanism. The people in control are rarely the busiest. They're the ones who can stop while everyone else is still running. They don't react instantly. They create delay. And in that delay, the whole system adjusts around them. That isn't laziness, that's status. If this makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort means you've touched a truth you've been avoiding. Maybe you don't lack discipline. Maybe you don't lack effort. Maybe you don't lack work ethic. What you lack is control over your own energy. And to understand why I can't stop feels this powerful, we have to go deeper. Not into motivation, not into mindset, into biology. It's not an accident that you can't stop. Biologist Robert Sapolsky, studying primates, noticed a brutal pattern. The low-status animals in the group carry higher cortisol, the stress hormone, than the ones on top. They don't work harder because they're virtuous. They work harder because they're scared. Scared of the alpha's stare, scared of mistakes, scared of being pushed out. Because in nature, getting kicked out of the group means death. Modern humans still carry the same wiring. When you live in an environment where your status feels uncertain, your brain doesn't run on reason. It runs on survival. You stop asking, does this lead to freedom? You ask an ancient question. How do I stay safe? And the fastest answer is simple. Look useful. Always. That's why the lower you feel in the hierarchy, the busier you become. Not because you're important. Because you can't afford to stop. You monitor faces. You guess the boss's mood. You reply fast, just like a primate scanning the alpha to make sure it didn't do something wrong. And this fear isn't just mental. Brain scans show something chilling. When humans fear being excluded from a social group, a region involved in physical pain lights up. Your brain can't cleanly separate a punch from a signal of rejection. To your nervous system, both are survival threats. So busyness takes on a new role. It stops being work. It becomes psychological painkillers. Every fast email is a hit of relief. Every completed task is a dose of comfort. I'm okay. I'm needed. I haven't been abandoned. But chronic cortisol has a brutal price. It narrows your vision. You see only what's in front of you. Today's deadline, this week's pressure. You lose the ability to see far, think strategically, and design an exit. You don't get dumber, you get locked in survival mode. And here's the key point. A person living in survival mode never reaches freedom. Freedom requires calm, space, and the ability not to react. The system doesn't want that. It needs you stressed enough to keep running, but not awake enough to stop. So if you're exhausted, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means your body has been trained to submit, and escaping that doesn't require more motivation. It requires understanding the trap your nervous system is stuck inside. There's a hard truth people avoid because it hurts. This system doesn't accidentally make you tired. It needs you tired. A depleted mind doesn't question. A drained body doesn't plan. A worn-down human can only react. And reaction is the lowest form of power. Look at how your workday gets engineered. Morning, you wake up to alarms, email, messages, notifications. Before you choose what matters, you get pulled into what's urgent. Your whole day becomes firefighting. One task ends, another appears. One problem gets solved. A new one is born right behind it. You finish the day exhausted, but there's a dangerous feeling lingering underneath. The feeling that you were productive, and your brain records that as a win. This is the most subtle part of the trap. Busyness creates the illusion of progress. You feel like you're rising just because you're moving. But there's a question most people never dare to ask. Am I moving forward, or am I running inside a cage? To understand that, you have to separate two things: linear effort and non-linear results. Linear effort is what you've been trained to respect. You work 2 extra hours, you get paid for 2 extra hours, you clear 10 more tasks. You get praised for being hardworking, you double your output. Your income rises a little. Everything grows in a straight line. It has a ceiling, and the ceiling is your body. Non-linear results work differently. A line of code can serve 1,000,000 people. One video can create value that repeats for years. One system can keep running even when you're not there. Here, a small input can explode into massive output. This is where power lives. But the system doesn't want you thinking this way. Because a person who understands leverage becomes hard to control. A person with empty space starts seeing the whole board, and someone who sees the whole board will soon realize how they're being used. So the system does something simple. It fills your calendar. It doesn't need chains, it uses meetings. It doesn't need threats, it uses KPIs. It doesn't need violence, it uses urgent deadlines. If you live long enough in this state, something dangerous happens in your brain. The part responsible for long-term thinking and strategic decision-making gets pushed aside. Your mind prioritizes survival reflexes. Finish it. Don't cause trouble. Don't fall behind. You stop asking, "Where is this taking me?" You ask, "How do I survive today?" And that is enough to keep you trapped. That's why so many people work 10 times harder than others and still fall behind. Not because they're less intelligent, because their energy is locked at the lowest level. They burn everything they have to keep the machine running smoothly, while others use that smooth running to build leverage for themselves. Here's the image that cuts cleanest. You feel proud because you're the strongest mule. You pull without complaining. You pull without resting. But the cart isn't yours, and the one who owns the cart doesn't need to be strong. They need leverage. At this point, you might feel a sting in your chest. Because if this is true, then years of hard work start to look like organized waste. And yes, that realization hurts. But stay with me. You're not poor because you're lazy. You're not poor because you lack discipline. You're poor because you poured all your energy into a kind of labor that can't be multiplied. And in a world where everything gets copied, the only things that can't be copied are judgment, strategy, and leverage. But to reach those, you need one thing the system tries to steal every day: space. Space to think, space to look back, space to design. Without space, you're just running faster inside the same trap. There's a fear deeper than the fear of being broke, deeper than the fear of failure. It's the fear of becoming useless. No one says it out loud, but millions live for it. Look at how you describe yourself. I'm a hard worker. I'm not afraid of work. I'm always available. It sounds respectable. It's also dangerous, because once you tie your identity to always doing, you lose the right to stop. Stopping stops being rest. Stopping becomes a threat. Here's the office psychology loop. You start out with nothing but effort. Effort gets you recognition. People praise you for being proactive. They trust you because you handle it. They keep you because you don't complain. Your brain learns the rule fast. Do more equals safety. So the moment you slow down, your nervous system sounds the alarm. Not because you're in real danger, because your identity is. This is the moment busyness stops being about work. It becomes defense. You don't work to create value, you work to avoid emptiness. When your calendar goes quiet, a question rises. If I'm not busy, do I still matter? That question is terrifying because it doesn't ask about skills. It asks about you. Many people aren't addicted to work. They're addicted to being needed, to someone depending on them, to being CC'd on emails, to being handed more responsibility. Not because they love the job, because they dread the thought that no one needs them anymore. That's why so many people explode when someone calls them inefficient. Not because of pride, because their identity is under attack. If they're not hardworking, who are they? If they're not busy, what's left? And this is the biggest blind spot. When you tie your worth to busyness, you do something fatal. You turn yourself into a consumable asset. The more it's used, the more it wears down. Real value in this world comes from things that grow the more you use them. Judgment, strategy, systems, reputation, leverage. Those don't get built in panic. They require silence. But silence terrifies people because silence removes the tasks you cling to. It removes the deadlines you hide behind, and it leaves you alone with the question you've avoided for years. Where am I going? That's why some people would rather work 12 hours than sit and think for 30 minutes. Work exhausts the body. Thinking threatens the ego. And here's what almost no one dares to admit. Busyness can be a form of escape. Escape from deciding. Escape from choosing a direction. Escape from taking responsibility for your future. Because when you're busy, you always have an excuse. I haven't had time. The system loves that. A person without time to think won't question. A person who won't question stays easy to steer. And easy to steer is what keeps the machine stable. But if you've made it this far, you probably feel that sting for a reason. Not because you don't understand, because you do. You felt guilty for resting. You felt anxious when there's nothing to do. You've opened your laptop just to feel like you're still doing something. If that's you, then here's the truth. You don't lack discipline. You lack sovereignty. Sovereignty doesn't start with quitting. It doesn't start with rebellion. It doesn't start with running away. It starts when you separate your identity from busyness. You stop being the person who does a lot. You become the person who chooses. Not everything, only what raises your position. A lot of people will hear this and exhale and think, so I just need rest. Sorry, rest doesn't fix the root. Rest reduces pain. It doesn't change status. Look at the familiar loop. You work until you break. You get tired, you snap, you hate it, you take a few days off, you sleep more, you turn off notifications, you feel lighter, then you come back. The emails are still there, the deadlines are still there, the expectations are still there. And fast, you're busy again. Not because you're weak, because you only recharged the battery while the system stayed the same. Rest isn't wrong. It's just oversold as a solution. Because the truth is simple. If you return to the same role, the same status, and the same easily replaceable labor, you will burn out again. That's why many people don't burn out once. They burn out repeatedly. They don't learn escape. They learn endurance. And then another dream appears. It sounds seductive. Freedom, quit, go freelance, follow your passion, own your time. But if you're not careful, you fall into a more sophisticated trap. Fake freedom. Fake freedom looks like this. No boss, but 10 clients. No fixed hours, but constant waiting. No manager, but bills chaining your throat. You think you escaped the system. You just switched to a harsher one. Many freelancers work more than employees. Many free people live online 24/7, not because they love freedom, because they still carry the old rule. If I'm not producing, I don't matter. As long as that rule lives inside you, you can change environments forever and still stay a worker. Here's the difference that matters. Stopping to recover is not the same as stopping to design. Recovery sends you back into the race. Design changes the race itself. Recovery asks, I'm exhausted. Can I rest? Design asks, why do I have to live like this? A sovereign mind doesn't chase more rest. It builds a life that doesn't require constant running. It doesn't ask, how do I tolerate pressure? It asks, how do I make this pressure powerless? And to do that, you need something rare. Deliberate space, not the space forced by collapse. Space you create on purpose. Space where you don't react, space where you don't do busy work, space where you step outside the machine and study it from above. But this is where most people panic, because in that space, no one gives orders, no checklist, no deadlines, just you and the responsibility to choose a direction. And choosing is heavier than obeying. Obedience has one advantage. You don't carry final responsibility. If it fails, you can say, I just followed instructions. But the moment you start building leverage, there's no one left to blame. Win or lose, it's yours. That's why so many people choose busyness over freedom. Real freedom is quiet. It doesn't look like an ad. It starts with silent nights where you stop working for other people and do something harder. You ask, what value can I multiply? What can I build that survives without my presence? What single move, done right, makes the next 100 moves unnecessary? If there's one word the modern world misunderstands the most, it's leverage. People hear leverage and think scams, tricks, cheating. No, leverage isn't fraud. Leverage is how a finite human amplifies their limited strength in an infinite world. Start with the basics. You have 3 things to sell. Time, skill, judgment. Time is the cheapest, and it's the one thing you never get back. And yet most people start their careers by selling all of it, hour by hour, day by day, year by year. When you sell time, you accept a brutal rule. Your income stays chained to your presence. You get sick, income stops. You rest, income stops. You disappear, everything collapses. That isn't freedom. That's survival trade. Leverage begins when you create value that doesn't require you to be there every time it pays off. And in the modern world, leverage comes in three core forms. Capital leverage. It lets money work for you. But don't misunderstand it. Capital isn't only cash. It's resources. Data. Access. If you have nothing but time, you have no capital. And you can't build capital if you're always exhausted. That's why drained people rarely accumulate anything. They burn everything just to stay alive. People leverage. It multiplies effort through others. But you don't need to be the boss to use it. Even as an employee, you can build leverage through systems, processes, automation, documentation. Every time you do something manually without asking how to remove yourself next time, you trap yourself at a lower level. And the strongest form. Zero marginal cost products. Technology, content, systems, packaged knowledge. You build it once. It runs forever. Software, a video, a framework, a course, an automated pipeline. Not because you're better than others, because you understand the rule. What multiplies defeats what depends on muscle. Now face the uncomfortable question. If you stop working tomorrow, does your value keep growing, or does it die with your presence? If it's the second, you're living in a golden cage. That's why selling time is the worst deal. Low ceiling, high risk, no leverage, total dependency on your health. And the system loves it. Because time sellers stay weak. But listen carefully. Leverage doesn't require you to quit tomorrow. It requires you to stop selling all your energy. It begins small. 90 minutes a day. No email, no meetings. No busy work. One question. How do I make this not need me next time? That's the transformation point. When you ask that question, you stop being a doer. You start becoming an operator. Not loud, not performative, not announce, silent, and sovereign. There's a deep reason so many people understand leverage but never build it. It's not intelligence, it's personality. It's something familiar that few people name. Nice guy syndrome. A nice guy isn't a kind person. A nice guy is a person who fears being disliked. He doesn't want to disturb anyone. He doesn't want tension. He doesn't want to look selfish. He learned early that if he stays pleasant, people won't hurt him. And he brings that belief into work, into ambition, into every power relationship. Nice guys work hard. Not because they love the job, because they fear disappointing people. They answer emails instantly. They take on more. They don't ask questions. Not because they agree, because they can't say no. But here's the raw truth. Power doesn't come from pleasing everyone. Power comes from tolerating discomfort, the stare of disapproval, the silence after a refusal, the fact that some people won't understand your strategy. And that's what nice guys fear most. A nice guy doesn't fear work. He fears conflict. Conflict forces him to stand firm, forces him to accept that some people won't like him. And that strikes the oldest fear of all, getting pushed out of the group. So he chooses a safer path. He stays busy. Busyness is the perfect way to avoid conflict. You don't have to say no, you just say, I'm slammed. You don't have to set boundaries. You just stay useful. And over time, people get used to your energy being available, on demand. That's the moment hard work turns against you. You stop being respected for ability. You get exploited for obedience. People with real status don't rush, not because they're lazy, because they don't need to prove themselves. When they go quiet, others have to guess. When they don't react instantly, the system adjusts. That is the power of silence. Silence isn't passive. It's the active choice not to react. When you don't respond immediately, you send a clear signal. My time has value. When you don't accept work unconsciously, you teach people something. Your presence isn't guaranteed. A nice guy hears this and trembles, because a familiar voice rises inside him. If I don't do it, what will they think? This is where your identity has to change. You stop seeking approval. You start setting conditions, not with threats, not with attitude, with scarcity. Scarcity doesn't need drama. You don't have to say, I'm so busy. You simply stop being always available, not always replying, not always explaining, not always proving. And then something strange happens. Oh, your value rises in silence. But be clear, silence only works when you're building real leverage. If you go silent without value, that isn't power, that's disappearance. So silence must come with ruthless investment in skill. There's a trap even more subtle than busyness. It doesn't exhaust you, it freezes you. It's the phrase, I have no choice. Many people know exactly how they're being used. They aren't naive, they aren't blind, they just believe they can't do anything else. Bills, family, pressure, and a role activates. The victim. A victim isn't weak. A victim is someone who surrendered choice. They don't say, I choose to stay. They say, I'm stuck. It sounds similar. Psychologically, it's a different universe. When you believe you have no choice, your brain changes. It stops searching for exits. It stops creating. It switches to endurance. Psychology calls this learned helplessness. You learn not to act. Not because you can't, because you believe acting won't matter. In that state, something dangerous happens. You turn pain into morality. At least I'm trying. At least I'm not quitting. At least I'm not selfish. Pain becomes a medal. Exhaustion becomes proof that you're good. And the cage locks from the inside. The system loves moral victims because they don't revolt. They complain. They don't change the rules. They suffer inside the old rules. This is where you need a ruthless pivot. Not in circumstances, in inner stance. And there's a man who gave the world a truth you can't dodge. Viktor Frankl. Frankl lost everything. Freedom, identity, dignity. But he discovered something no one could steal. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space, you can choose your attitude. Stop there. Frankl didn't say, you can change your situation instantly. He said, you can refuse to hand your inner power to the situation. That difference is survival. The pivot begins with one sentence. I'm staying, but I'm not surrendering. You still go to work, but you stop calling it destiny. You still do your responsibilities. But you stop merging your identity with the role. You are using the system. The system is not defining you. When you stop playing victim, something strange happens. The cage feels looser. Not because the world changed, because your position inside it changed. You start seeing it like a strategic game. Not, how do I endure, but how do I exit in silence? Exiting in silence isn't quitting loud, it isn't burning bridges, it's reclaiming choice in small cuts. Don't react instantly. Don't accept work unconsciously. Don't over-explain. Each small move slices off the old victim identity. And most importantly, you stop waiting for the system to be fair. You learn a more adult truth. Fairness doesn't come from promises. It comes from position. And position comes when you own something the system can't easily replace. If you've stayed with me this far, something has shifted. You're no longer asking, how do I feel less tired? You're asking, how do I stop living like this? This is where you stop chasing temporary relief and start rebuilding status architecture, not with motivation, not with inspiration, with design. The first identity swap is everything. You stop being the doer, you become the architect. The doer asks, what do I have to do today? The architect asks, what one move, done right once, makes the next 100 moves unnecessary? To hold this new position, you need 3 pillars. Not philosophy, not pep talks, operational pillars. Pillar 1, presence, the power of not always being there. Most people build value by staying available. That's the mistake. People with status build value through deliberate scarcity. You don't have to say, I'm busy. You simply stop reacting. Don't answer in 2 minutes. Don't accept immediately. Don't over-explain. Each small delay is a status signal. My energy is not automatically yours. Delay isn't laziness. It's the condition that forces the system to operate without you. Pillar 2, value, from sweat to judgment. The market pays low for labor. It pays high for correct judgment. One person does 100 things. Another says, don't do 99 of them. That's power. To move from sweat to judgment, accept this. 1 hour of deep thinking can beat 100 hours of frantic work. But deep thinking only appears when you protect thinking time like property. Pillar 3. Time. Reclaim ownership. Employees sell time. People with status buy time back. Not with cash overnight, with automation, processes, replicable products, and irreplaceable skill. Free time isn't laziness. It's strategic silence. In that silence, you see what busy people never see. These pillars don't build in one night, but they begin with a concrete protocol. Step 1. Reclaim 2 inviolable hours every day. No meetings, no email, no busy work. This isn't overtime. This is leverage time. If you don't own these 2 hours, you don't own yourself. Step 2. Cut 20% of work that doesn't raise your position. Don't ask, is it urgent? Ask, does it raise my value? If not, automate it, delegate it, or remove it. Every cut is a unit of power reclaimed. Step 3. Invest in non-copyable capability. Don't learn what everyone learns. Don't do what everyone does. Build a monopoly of self, a rare combination of skills, experience, and perspective that no one can clone. When you become rare, you stop begging for opportunity. Opportunity finds you. At this point, the world reacts. People call you difficult, not a team player, not like before. That's the price of leaving the herd, and it's a sign you're doing it right. There's a truth few systems will say out loud. You're not trapped because you're weak. You're trapped because you learn to suppress a part of yourself that matters. That part isn't pretty, it isn't polite, it isn't moral, but it's real. Deep inside, you lives a predator. Not a predator in the streets. A predator that craves status, control, the power to decide instead of being decided for. From childhood, you were trained to starve it. Don't be ambitious, don't stand out, don't be selfish, don't want power, so you obeyed. But a starved predator doesn't vanish. It turns inward. It becomes silent envy, unspoken resentment, suppressed rage, a long, dull exhaustion with no clear cause. You're not angry at the system. You're angry at yourself for refusing your own nature. Jung called this the shadow, and he warned something cold. A man without a shadow isn't good. He's harmless. Harmless isn't noble. Harmless means you can't move anything. The problem isn't having a shadow. The problem is being ruled by it. When you deny your ambition, the shadow comes back as sabotage, burnout, pointless sacrifice, addiction to approval, quiet hatred for people who win. You think you're moral. You're just bleeding yourself out. Shadow integration isn't indulgence. It's placing the shadow under iron discipline. You don't let the predator bite randomly. You lock it inside a steel cage called silence. Silence doesn't make you weaker. It makes you dangerous in the right way. A person who speaks less, reacts slower, and acts with selection becomes hard to manipulate. You don't need to prove. You don't need to justify. You don't need long explanations. You let results speak. When you integrate the shadow, something strange happens. Fear stops driving you, but ambition stops burning you too. You don't rush, but you become patient. Not the patience of surrender, the patience of a swordsmith. Remember this image. A swordsmith doesn't brag. He stays silent for months. Hammer, fire, steel, no applause. But when the blade is finished, one swing can decide an empire. You don't need the world to understand you. You need the world to be unable to ignore you. And the world can't ignore people who have leverage, discipline, rare capability, and the ability not to react. Burn this into your mind. Power isn't handed to the most deserving. It belongs to the most self-controlled. Not the one who works the most. Not the one who sacrifices the most. The one who stops at the right moment and strikes at the right time. Now ask yourself one last question. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, will you go back to being the obedient workhorse, waiting for the whip, or will you lay the first brick of your own leverage? No announcements, no speeches, just silence and action. The world won't change because you understand. It changes when you change your position inside it. Turn this off, close the noise, reclaim your energy, and start forging your blade. You're not a hostage of blind hard work. You are the sovereign mind. Uncontrolled, no more.